I'll call to order this District of Clearwater Council meeting for Tuesday, April 19th at 2 o'clock. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Símpcwemc people, who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. And since this is National Poetry Month, we'll have Lloyd come on up and read us something today. And here I have a little biography of Lloyd today, which is lots of fun. Lloyd was born in McBride in 1931 and grew up on the family farm 4.5 miles east of town. He attended classes in a one-room school, completing the 8th grade in 1944. By this time, at age 13, Lloyd could perform all farm-related activities, and his father had tutored him on various forestry tasks at his bush camps. In 1956, he met his future wife, Evelyn, who had accepted the position of teaching 32 students in a grade 2 class at McBride. They were married in 1958, raised 4 children. Val, I think I know. Is Val's one of your kids, right? Yeah. And remained in the valley until 1979. The couple then moved around the interior of the province. During a 5-year stint at Vanderhoof, Lloyd served as area manager of roads and bridges for the Ministry of Transportation and Highways. At age 65, he retired from his position in 1996. In retirement, Lloyd began writing and published his first book in 2000. 2 more published books appeared, one in 2011 and another in 2017. Poetry has not been common to his writing, but such word connection happens. It seems to flow from his heart. There you go. Welcome, Lloyd, and super glad to have you here as part of National Poetry Month. And whenever you're ready, fire away.
Thank you very much, and good day to all of you. Let's put a guy. I would like to meet that fellow that you were talking about.
Yeah, he seems really interesting.
Some of it I've forgotten. I'll get right into it because this is time limited. The first poem here for you, I wrote April 23. My wife, Deb, had been in Forestry Place care home for 2 years at that time. And during 2 years, they had been visiting, usually hour and a half in the evening. Warmer seasons of the year, I would take her, sometimes have the evening together. COVID came in March and disrupted that routine. By the beginning of April of that year, we're locked, and I could no longer visit inside the building. Kept there until the beginning of October. So this poem, especially once the care home and the staff rescuer. Water. The winds blow between us now. We're brought on by a terrible foe, one which has no fear, no sureness. It cares not how it strikes us down. 2 spirits now in the separate dome. Gives me now a broken soul. The days are long without your hand, in mind like treasured gold. I know the pain cuts deep. For you and me, we are apart. Sleep. The dawn come, the sun will shine on your mind, and moonlight glow will light the way. We then can walk in duo step on sandy shores by water's tide, and far away beyond the waves, the sea is there for us. Our thoughts are there on mountains high, clouds are soft behind our back. In mind, and wine is perfect. The wind has died and chills no more. Warmth of fear. No longer alone. God brings us through to share again. I have another. We could see inside before the streets was all alive. Would we then approach it differently or even not begin the drive? All our choices there for each of us to ponder. There's a prayer to tip the scale. I often really wonder. And that will sound. Choice which spreads, maybe save a life or work around. Too often sought for upward paths instead of flowing from the heart. When the debate within can tax resolve and foster doubt. Caution now must be the first, for what you do throughout this day may linger on with your life, out now going either way. Let the final thought before you sleep be that of thanks and not of sorrow. For what you do may affect your life tomorrow.
Well, thank you for coming out today. And yeah, it's amazing what rattles around in your head forever has the opportunity to finally come out in a way. Excellent stuff. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure here.
There's a few online, so you probably had an audience of about 20 today. So we'll go with that, and we'll take that as a win. And thank you for being part of Poetry Week, and thank you to Sandra for getting you out here and the whole thing. I think Shelley's got her hand on the button there.
I just wanted to say thank you for speaking what many hearts are feeling. And I think that you really spoke of a truth, of a sense of disconnectedness, being a little bit lost, a little bit broken, and just looking to be found. And I think it's really important that this has been brought forward, that art seems to stop us and reflect. And so I just wanted to say thank you. It was just really excellent work. Thank you.
Hey, have a good day. Well done. Okay. Barry, can you just tag the light behind you? Agenda, page 4. Duplicate item there for an earlier one. 18.2 and 18.6 are actually the same thing. And then item 9, presentations. On the top of page 2, we have BC Hydro, which will be coming up in a couple minutes with Shag Darman. Dag Sharman. Anyways, Dag Sharman. So hold on a second. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda with those changes to it? Unless somebody would like to add anything to the agenda. Okay, if not, put your hands back up. I saw them. Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Frizzle seconds. All those in favor. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. Any errors or omissions? So moved by Councillor Bamford, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. We're going to move the podium out of the way. All those in favor? Bamford and McKenzie, first and seconded. No development and zoning, no unfinished business, no public or statutory hearings. Moving to the top of page 2, BC Hydro. And I'm not sure everybody we have online, but I did see Dag there. So who's talking today?
Thank you for having us, Mayor and Council. It's Dag here. Appreciate the opportunity. So we appreciate the opportunity to talk about our program, our streetlight replacement project. And with me today are a few folks from Hydro, so that you can get the information that you need and have requested. So with me is Dave Cooper, who has been working with Michael on your end, and Dave works with me in community relations out of our Vernon office. And I manage community relations for Hydro for the Southern Interior, which we define internally as south of 100 Mile House to the American border and east of the Fraser Canyon to Alberta, so that area there, which obviously includes Clearwater. And also we have 3 folks from our streetlight program, DJ, Enzo, and Ida. And DJ is the manager of the program. Ida oversees the program as part of her customer engagement management. And then Enzo is managing the deployment of the LED streetlights on the ground. So DJ and Enzo have some information they'll share, and we understand we have about 15 minutes, so we commit to being brief and sticking with the timeline. And without any further ado, I'll throw it over to DJ for his presentation. DJ.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dag. I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm getting some restrictions here going through the Hydro side of things.
Your Hydro
I got
side?
it.
So Michael in our side actually has your presentation. So if you
Perfect.
worst case scenario, I think we can just do he's just going to get it loaded up here, and then you can.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad that BC Hydro has good security, cyber security, and that's probably what's helping it.
Yeah, we're
Anyways,
just testing the whole system out. So thanks a lot. Why don't I jump straight into things here? So thanks a lot for having us this afternoon just to talk about the streetlight replacement program and some of the activities that are going to take place in Clearwater. The way we've set this up is we've just got 2 slides to run through, keep it pretty simple, and really wanted to open it up to questions that you guys may have. Our understanding was there's sort of 2 main topics you wanted to cover off. One being talking about rates and costs, and the second one of really what does it look like when it comes time for us to go and replace the lights within the district of Clearwater, and when is that actually going to happen? So with that, why don't we move on to the second slide, please? So there's a whole bunch of information on this slide, but I'll try to walk us through sort of the key pertinent parts on here. So firstly, in order to set the rates, so that's the monthly cost per street light that BC Hydro charges its customers, we have to go through a fairly extensive regulatory process with the BC Utilities Commission. Back on November 2021, the Utilities Commission approved the rates that you see here, and I'll show you those in a minute. And so we'll walk through what that actually ends up meaning to the district of Clearwater. So the top left-hand side of the screen, the gray box up there, that's what the rates are for the high pressure sodium lights. So the rates are set up by the wattages or the groups of wattages. So for example, for the about 240, 150 watt HPS lights that are in the district of Clearwater, they're charged out at a rate of about $23.37 per light per month. On the right-hand side of that table, you'll see the rates for the LED lights, and those are based upon the 4 different wattages of lights that we have. And based upon the selections provided by the District of Clearwater, all of the lights will be replaced with 114 watt LED streetlights, and the monthly rate for those is about $23.89. There's a couple caveats to those. First one being that there's a temporary supplemental charge that will be in effect from May 1st of 2021 through March 31st of 2024. And that supplemental charge is in place to recover the remaining net book value of the high pressure sodium streetlights that are removed before their end of their useful life. So in the bottom left-hand square there, you can see that the District of Clearwater has about 255 lights. Currently, most of them are 150 watt HPS lights, and they're all going to be replaced with 114 watt LED lights. And note that some of them have already been replaced through some spot repairs. From a dollars perspective, what does this actually mean to you? So before May 2021, your approximate bill, and I say approximate because there's annual adjustments and other things in there, was about $5,800 per month. You will see about a $530 a month supplemental charge, again, from that May 1, 2021 through the end of March of 2024 period. So that meaning throughout the deployment duration, your bill will be approximately $6,300 to about $6,600. And I say approximate because in part, what you are charged depends upon what kind of lights you currently have in the field at that point in time. Once that supplemental charge goes away at the end of March of 2024, the bills will drop back down to about $6,100 per month. And obviously that's all dependent upon annual rate increases or decreases that take place on a normal course of business. And again, are all governed through the BC Utilities Commission. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions on rates before I hand things over to Ida and Enzo to talk about the actual deployment.
Any questions of from council on rates or anything along those lines? Councillor Sim, go ahead.
So would the supplemental charge be waived if we just let these current lights last out for their useful life?
No, unfortunately not. The way it was set up with the commission, and this is for all of our about 370 street lighting customers on this rate schedule. And so within that, there's about 88,000 street lights. Regardless of the type of light that are currently in the field, so if you all have all HPS lights, or you have a mixture of HPS and LED, or all LED, starting on May 1st, 2021, there's that $2.06 charge per light per month.
And sorry, just because there was a lot of information there, what does the $2.06 go towards then?
That $2.06 is going to recovering the remaining net book value of the existing high pressure sodium lights. So because the lights are being removed before their end of their useful accounting life, we have to basically write that off the books, take the asset off, and to do so, it comes out as a supplemental charge.
Councillor Bamford.
So if I follow that train of thought, we're forced to put in new streetlights and we have to pay for the life of the old streetlights that we may not have wanted in the first place. So you're charging us to pay for the useful life of the ones that we had. So if just tell me if that's right after. My other point is that when we started off on this, we thought that LED streetlights would be, you know, cheaper, more environmentally friendly, We're going to end up paying $500 a month more by going to LED lights. So what's the benefit for us to do that? I mean, I thought they were going to be cheaper and have a longer life and be more environmentally friendly, but it seems like, you know, we're just paying a lot more money for something maybe we didn't need.
I'll let you try to answer that. My supplemental question to that, maybe you can answer that, or one of the next two people, are we actually going to be saving electricity on overall usage between the LEDs and the old style lights?
Yeah, so to answer that part, and I'll try to get to all those pieces, assuming I remember, and if I missed anything, please let me know and I'll try to answer that. So there is an energy savings. So as you can see, you're going from 150 watt high pressure sodium light, and on top of that, there is about a 30% increase because of the ballast within the street light. So you're going from using up about 200 watts for that light down to 114 watts for the LED light. So there is an energy savings. However, the energy savings is only a small portion of what goes into the rate. The street light rates account for the energy use. They also have to account for the distribution of the light. They also account for the maintenance of the light and the actual asset value. So the light itself, the conductors within the connecting the light up, and the arms connecting the light to the pole. Within the program's cost, and then again, it ties all into the rate here, it also accounts for the full program cost. So the streetlight replacement program, accounting for everything around replacing the lights, buying the lights, managing all the interactions with our customers, the technology to do so, it ends up being about a $68 million program overall. So all of the costs associated with the program need to be covered through the rates as well.
Thank you. So I think that actually covers most of it. Councillor Bamford, was there?
Was there anything I didn't cover off there?
Sorry, yeah, the only thing that Councillor Bamford asked as a supplemental is what's the lifespan on the LEDs versus the old sodiums?
Yeah, so for the old high pressure sodium light, the actual light, the luminaire itself, the actual fixture, had think about a 40-year useful life, but we were going out there every 7 years to replace the bulb, approximately. With the LED streetlights, we're expecting them to have a useful life of about 20 years. So the assumption is that we go out there now and don't need to come back and look at it for about 20 years.
Okay, and then supplemental, Councillor Sim?
So is there a warranty with that, or would, if it goes within your expected time frame, is the district expected to replace that?
No, all of the maintenance charges. So if a light burns out for whatever reason, fails for whatever reason, that's covered within the rates.
Okay.
And so that's part of the maintenance program that is accounted for there. So there's no charge to the district for the lights. The only charge the district really sees is this monthly charge for the lights.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, go ahead with the rest of it. I have a couple more, but I think they'll come up in the next section.
Councillor Taylor, did you want to ask your question, or do you want me to come back to you afterwards?
Sorry.
With the
Go
chair.
ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Yeah. So so what's the business case for doing this if there's no saving in costs and no benefit to the taxpayer? Like, where is the benefit, and why are we doing this?
Right. So the primary driver for the streetlight replacement program is the federal PCB regulations that came out back in 2008. And those PCB regulations stipulate that all streetlights that may contain PCBs in them over a certain threshold have to be removed from service by the end of calendar 2025. So that was the reason why we had to do something with this. There is an extensive business case that was filed within the rate application, or from the IRs, the information requests with the rate application, which go and look at the other drivers. So a lot of our customers have been asking for LED streetlights, in part because they are converting their lights. So some of the larger customers especially have a mixture of both BC Hydro owned streetlights and their own streetlights. And so when they're replacing their streetlights over to LED, they're looking for that uniformity within their communities. And so they've been asking BC Hydro to do it. Other drivers involved around the maintenance side of things. So obviously with the LED streetlights lasting longer, they require less maintenance. And in turn with that is with there being fewer failures, then there's improved safety. There's less time in which a streetlight is burnt out and there's a dark spot within the community and risks of something happening there.
Does that answer it,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Taylor?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, keep going for now. Thanks. Who's up next?
All right, on that, I'll hand it over to Enzo and Ido on the next slide, please, to talk about what does it actually look like for you guys to get to your LED streetlights in your community.
Thanks, DJ. Ida, did you want to add some color right now? Or do you want me to dive into it?
I'll just add maybe a preamble, only because so that the Clearwater, District of Clearwater understands the process and how we got to the 114 watt 3000 K. So we have been working with city staff on the lighting selection. And prior to having a schedule, which Enzo will talk about shortly, we typically have pre-deployment meetings with your staff to outline what's expected. This may include any permitting issues or any other requirements that the district might be looking for. So before we actually get started, that meeting will happen. And then deployment. So there you go, Enzo, over to you.
All right, nice segue. So as far as deployment goes, what we're planning right now is our internal BC Hydro line crews to actually be performing this work. So it's the line crew right in Clearwater. The plan right now, as it shows on the slide deck here, is for it to commence in the spring of this year, right through until fall of this year, 2022. Now, again, we would start deployment aligned. We'd all be aligned with that as far as when we get the green light to start, and then we would proceed to fall. As mentioned, it will be our internal BC Hydro crew. That's the plan as of today. And we would, as we do with any other community, we would deploy accordingly. It wouldn't mean that sometimes we get questions like, well, are they going to do one light here, skip over some of the old HPSs and start again? I mean, we try to be as consistent as possible so we have uniformity. That's the plan right now. I've spoken to our internal line crews in Clearwater about this plan. This aligns with their existing work plans, being available for unplanned, i.e. trouble that may be trouble calls that need to attend to in the community. So that's the plan right now. As Ida alluded to, there would be obviously communication between us on the deployment side, our BC Hydro Streetlight team, customer service, and of course, you in Clearwater. So that's the plan as of today. Excellent reminder at the bottom here as well. To please do report any burnt out streetlights. Anything not functioning properly, please report it as soon as possible so we can address it. So that's the plan on the deployment end.
Council Bamford had a question.
Yeah, just real quick, two of them. One of them is, are there any grants that are available for municipalities? I know that if you switch from a fossil fuel furnace to an electric furnace right now, you can get a $4,000 grant or something from BC Hydro. So I'm just wondering if grants are available in relationship to switching from the old street lights to an LED lights, which is more environmentally friendly. And the other question is the difference between the lumens on a 75 watt LED versus 150 watt of the old street lights. We're going to 114. I just wonder whether a 75 watt, if the lumens would be enough for certain other areas where it might be more residential areas versus more maybe major corridors. Can you give me some idea what the brightness might change in that would be?
I'll answer the first question there. I'm not aware of any grants available. I think one of the challenges, it's not the district, for example, going out and buying new lights. I know that there used to be grants for that, actually from BC Hydro. But because these are BC Hydro lights, again, I'm not aware of any grants available for that. And I know it has come up with some other customers. So I don't think there's anything on that side.
Thank you.
And
yeah, go ahead on the comparison, the real comparison.
I would need to pull up the data to see what the lumen level differences are. I don't have that in front of me right now, and I don't look at the other folks on the hydro side. If you're interested, we can get that to you. I know that all the conversations and the information has been provided to your staff, but I'm not sure all the details in terms of how they came up with making their selections.
Okay, thank you on that. Yeah, I think we'll get some locations. I think we've looked at 4 or 5 sample lights on Clearwater Valley Road here. It'd be interesting to see which one of the ones that's out there is the actual light that will be mass installed around the community, so that we can get an understanding of how there's different sort of light patterns with all the different lights that we've seen, LEDs.
Yeah,
there has been a lot of talk within the community about light pollution and that sort of thing, and trying to minimize that. The one benefit of the old sodiums is they weren't very glaring, whereas some of the newer LEDs can be quite bright, which is great if you're trying to stop crime in the big city, but when you're trying to see the night stars out in the country, can be a little bit heavy. So I am glad that we're not doing 150 watt LEDs, but I kind of like to see a few 114s just to understand what we're getting into.
Yeah, I'm looking at the team here. My understanding is that there are, I think, about 5 114 watt LED streetlights that have already been installed within the district of Clearwater. If you want the addresses, we can look those up and get them to you.
That would be fantastic. Then we can at least sort of have a look at the world and understand what's coming. Go ahead,
good.
Mr. Thomas, or no, we good? Yeah, okay, I think we can do that from our end, actually. So or send it to our CAO, John Thomas. Any further questions from council? Anything? Oh, Councilor Taylor, go ahead. I can see you. Yay.
I couldn't find my unmute button. So just a clarification on the timing. So the temporary supplemental fee kicks in May this year, but we don't get the new lights until a year later. Is that right? So we're paying that supplemental fee a year before we get the light.
That's correct. That supplemental charge went into effect for all streetlights as of May of 2021. And it was just a matter of taking, I think it's about $6 million or so. And it was essentially dividing that up by the number of months and the number of lights that were required. So that's spread out over that entire period.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Anything further from the BC Hydro side? I see Dad come off mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. We always appreciate it. Things like this that we do, which have a regulatory component, and other components tend to be much more complex than they may appear at first. And so we really appreciate you coming directly to us to try to get the information you need to make your decisions and to understand the issue. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for your presentation. There's definitely been a lot of questions about this from council and also some from the community. So having some understanding, especially about the environmental differences and compositions of the old sodium lights, the environmental risks in there, and then the lifespans of the various lights. That's very beneficial to sort of understand and communicate out to the community as to why this is happening. And then the next stage obviously is listening to them when they start going to place, whether or not they like them or not, how bright they are and things like that. But you're going to hear that everywhere. And we've already been tuned into the Kamloops conversation as well with what happened down there. So that triggered a few red flags for us as well. So thank you for your time. And Mr. Thomas has a comment as well, and then I'll let you go.
Just a quick question. What if council wanted to wait a bit longer before the transition occurred? Is that possible for council?
Catch that?
Yeah, I was just looking at Enzo shaking his head there.
Yeah, I
And
wasn't
I'll
sure
let
who
answer.
wanted to take the reins on that question. The message, the quick answer is yes. The message to the line crew that will be deployed to do this work is they are not to proceed until we're all in agreement. So if council needed more time, that's fine. At this point, they will not start deployment until we're all aligned with timing. So.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's everything from everybody on council and the management table. Thank you for your time. That's great. Nice to talk to you. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll probably see some of you at Silgar the next convention. So have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Moving on to, we've already done 10.1. Thank you. Moving on to Mayor's report. I did a lot in the last 2 weeks, a lot on the medical file, a lot on the housing file, agenda setting. I can't remember it all and I forgot to write it down today. So I'm just going to move on to Councillor Bamford.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. I attended the Community and Economic Development and Infrastructure meeting, and I'll report on that later. And I had another cemetery committee meeting, and it was a really good meeting. It was a lot of discussion. We didn't cover very far as the bylaw goes, but basically we talked a lot about the three other bylaws that we looked at have restrictions on statutory holidays, like no interments on statutory holidays, and some of them had it on Mother's Day, Father's Day. We had quite a bit of discussion on that, and kind of felt that probably what will be coming to council is a movement to leave our bylaw more like it is, so you can have it on weekends and holidays as long as staff is available and there's an extra charge for that. So to make it sort of that small town atmosphere, we don't want to go to the big city atmosphere, right, where you just say, well, here you go, you can't do it on a weekend period for travel and other stuff. So those recommendations will be coming to council. The other thing that we talked a lot about was looking in future, moving towards a green area in our cemetery and a garden area in our cemetery. And those have specific things that can be done on those in relationship to the type of interment that's going to occur, as far as spreading ashes in a garden area. Sort of a lot of cemeteries have that, and a green area is a natural burial kind of a thing without any embalming and stuff like that. So we spent a lot of time talking about those, and there will be recommendations regarding those things coming forward to council at the end. So it was a good discussion. We just didn't cover a whole bunch, and that's my report.
Thank you. Moving on to Councillor Frizzle.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. I attended the Tourism Osprey meeting on April 6th. That was a really good meeting. They're moving forward on taking over the Visitor Information Center, and lots of work's been done and a lot more to be done. On April 12th was the seniors luncheon, and the fire chief and captain came in and spoke to the seniors on fire smarting the property and the buoyant alert. And they were able to help many of the seniors get hooked up to the buoyant alert. Some were on a temporary app or whatever, and so they didn't get alerts before and now. So they seem to be all clear on that now. And we've also signed up, I think, at least a dozen people that are going to have the fire department come and check the property for fire smart and different things they could do to make sure the property is fire smart. So that was really good. And hopefully that'll encourage more seniors to ask for help. So they maybe could be coming from Blackpool and Vavenby fire departments as well. So it was really good if the whole community was working together towards fire smarting. I met with the new economic development officer and I spoke to her about the community economic development task force. We spoke on different things she thought we could do to involve the committee more. So I'm looking forward to talking to her more on that. It was kind of an exciting meeting. I was excited about it. So I also met with the facilities manager and we did a walk about behind the hospital and Evergreen Acres to decide on a good spot for the wind booth that has been made, has been commissioned really by the hospice and made by the men's sheds. And then tomorrow I'm going to walk with a hospice representative and the couple of fellows from the men's shed and make a decision on where it's going to be based. So that'll be going up sometime this spring pretty soon because the weather has improved. I also attended the community planning meeting for May Day weekend, and I'll let Councillor Sim speak more on that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Frizzle. Councillor Herring is away at school today. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Not a lot to report from these last couple of weeks for me, but I did want to send out a couple congratulations to Sim for the 2 recent achievements I got. The IIA, Indigenous Initial Attack Crew, it's very important down there in that part. Well, all parts in general. And it's cool to see a longtime childhood friend taking the role and that, also a fellow counselor down there. And, you know, it's good to see him. His faller that he's got was my faller in 03. So just kind of neat to see some people, you know, and doing a good thing. Second is signing of the child welfare agreement, the first of its kind, and hoping this sets the bar for the rest of the other Indigenous communities in the province. It can be done. Took a couple of years, but it's good work's been made. And aside from that, I'll be in Kofi next week, so next meeting I'll have a good report back for that.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. Yeah, I attended the signing at Chuchua with the Minister of Children and Family Development for that signing of that agreement. That's the first agreement. The initial agreement is that Símpcwemc will be notified of any of the children of their nation going into care, but the long-term agreement is that they will be able to take control and be caretakers of those children, whether they're on reserve or not, which is fantastic news for them. And there's a lot of tears in the room for that one. And yes, as to Mr. Ron Lampro Jr. and his rising star role in the initial attack crew, that's fabulous news. I was very impressed by all the new Símpcwemc counselors that were at that meeting. Allison Green, sorry. And there's a new fellow that replaced Juice Phillip, who is the housing critic, and he is his portfolio involves housing. And his name's off drop my head right now. But anyways, super sharp, had a conversation with him, and I think we have a lot in common as far as housing needs with the Símpcwemc. That could be of mutual benefit moving forward. So yeah, excellent on all those things. I'm just using your report to say the report for the things that I missed. Anyways, Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much, and thanks for those updates. I am curious, just one thing about the fire smarting, if they talked about the importance of raking, and then either discarding that or burning the debris. Did they talk about that? Right. How to avoid that combustible. Super. Good. So I had the opportunity to visit both the high school and the elementary school for some assemblies. And what was interesting is that the kindergarten class and the grade 2 class had never had an assembly. And if you think about that, it's actually just goes to show how much is being missed and how they had to remember, you know, sort of ceremony and how to do that. So that was really quite startling for me. And I will report the kindergarten kids did awesome. So that was great there. I also want to thank the fire department so much for continuing with the tradition of the Easter egg hunt. I think that they had said that over 100 kids were involved with that. And I think it is these small efforts that bring community together that just make us a little more whole and just remember that kind of core DNA that you used to really set us on fire. Which is great. I attended a Rotary meeting to talk about some community planning for the May Day celebrations, which I'll touch on in just a sec. Tourism Wells Gray, and thank you to the citizens who came out to clean up the parking lot. Once that snow was removed, it was a bit of an eyesore. So it just goes to show that those community helping hands really do make a good impression on our community. So in terms of the May Day parade, we had a really good community meeting. Rotary let us know at that meeting that after 25 very successful years that they have opted not to move forward with the May Day parade this year. So that is kind of a gap there. So I'm just going to pass out some summaries of what's been going on. So I'll let you... we had talked about doing a car rally scavenger hunt for the Friday night of the May Day celebrations. And this is just something that's been done in the past in the community. It's really, really fun. But those who attended the planning meeting had asked that or suggested that maybe the Legion might want to be involved as a start and an end point on that. I wrote to them and said, you know, maybe we do an entry fee that a dinner would be included or something like that. They've advised that they just don't have that volunteer capacity. So we'll have to look at something else. The rough outline for Saturday is to see if the Elks would be keen on the May Day festivities, including some advertising about their breakfast and their great market, because that really did well over the winter. The farmers market will touch base with them. The parade, I did touch base with the Chamber of Commerce and asked if maybe they would consider it. They're going to consider that. I've also been to CSS to see if any the students there might want some leadership opportunities. But it's still something to consider. The big question that I was asked by some businesses when I was doing a pulse check, is this something that should maybe fade with COVID, or should it actually continue? So that's just a question to ponder. So we'll see what the Chamber of Commerce says. They're going to do also a check-in with some of their businesses. The theme that the planning group came up with was a neighborhood catch-up. There was great conversation around the fact that what people are enjoying is just those interactions where you can catch up, see what's been going on, and to really find out about what's been happening. So we're left with some of the district events, and the idea is that maybe the district oversee 12 o'clock noon to 3 p.m. at the Rotary Sports Park. Rotary has said that they would host a barbecue that would be by donation, and all proceeds could go towards a community project. A volunteer social. So social group, a social circle to maybe get some volunteer groups out to meet new people in the community to say, hey, here's who we are, and here's who, you know, if you would like to be a part of us, we'd love to have you. Pickleball, doing a round robin. The Lively Arts, they are super keen to participate, and they're talking about doing an open mic. There was talk about doing a street hockey tournament, maybe doing that outside, or maybe use the ice rink space. Lots of kids games. There was a real impetus to talk about some of the retro games that used to be done from way back. The fire department, these guys are so amazing. They want to do a dunk tank and an ice cream stand. which will be kind of fun. And then somebody was very keen to do a bit of a disc golf tournament at CSS. And I am so excited for Dennis Grefford to just hear that news and just come forward with enthusiasm and new outfits.
Never mind. I just went like 3.5 years without the term disc golf being used constantly in a council meeting, but you just had to bring Dennis and give disc golf back up. But
That's
you know,
because visionaries can't be forgotten.
yeah.
#1 growing sport in North America. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. So, you know, over the next little while, we're going to be talking about, you know, do we start small and simple and then expand? Maybe see who's interested. I love the fact that the car group is doing their event on the 6th or 7th of May. Is that right? Yeah. 7th. Maybe that's something to talk to them about next year, is maybe that we tie that into the May Day. So just have different ideas, but let's use COVID as an opportunity for new beginnings. So that's it there. And then the last one is community soccer starts tomorrow for the kids. So you should see about 190 kids out on the fields. I am hoping that the district was informed about that for the field house to be open. No, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for making note of that. So they will be there 5:30 and they are there every Wednesday and Monday. So thank you. Appreciate that. I think that's the report.
Well, that was a lot. And thank you for writing it all down. So it makes it a hell of a lot easier to figure it all out. Because, before I go to Councillor Taylor, pitch in Saturday, 8:30. I'll be at the Sportsplex parking lot with my dump truck and some muffins, because I don't want any leftover donuts, and some coffee and bags and gloves and that sort of thing. So those that want to participate from the community, you can either meet me there and get some stuff or just start on your own. I've posted the neighborhood maps online. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. So in terms of things going on in the last couple of weeks, it's been fairly quiet. We did have the committee of the whole last Tuesday. And then the other thing, looking back, was the girls soccer team from CSS went to the Hope tournament and so close to gold on that final day, losing by just one very lucky goal, I think, from all accounts. But a great showing by the girls team. I'm very proud of how well they did. And then looking forward, I was going to pitch in. I can't make it on Saturday, but I'm hoping to send some child labour along to help out there. We, as Councillor Sims said, looking forward to soccer starting tomorrow. Very exciting. We have the minor hockey banquet next week to celebrate the season that we've had, a very successful season for the association. And also looking forward a little bit further on, I think May 12th for the Moosehide campaign is going to be back to an in-person event. So very much looking forward to attending that. And that's it.
Thank you for those two extra reminders on Moosehide and then minor hockey. I was invited to the dinner, but if somebody else would like to attend, because I'm away at Silga for that one, I assume you're attending, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, in other capacities.
Okay, yes, but if somebody else would like to tag along for that one, I do have an invitation that we can forward on to minor hockey. Sounds like it's a free dinner. Come on. Thank you for your report and those updates. Moving on to Committee of the Whole minutes. The minutes of the Community and Economic Development Infrastructure Committee meeting held April 12th. Recommendation. Somebody want to move that one? Or moved by Councillor Bamford, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Any questions, Councillor Sim? Discussion?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good meeting, and certainly some hard work was done around the DCCs. But I also really appreciated the time that the committee took to discuss some of the issues around housing. And I was left with a reflection on something that the mayor said, and he said, you know, maybe we should look at the OCP. And I thought, oh, well, didn't we just do that? But maybe there's some things that council can actually do. So I just wanted to share with you the homework I did on the weekend. Oh, I do. Because it dawned on me the fact that when we talk about housing as a council, is maybe we're not all talking about the same thing. And although we've got a housing needs assessment, is how we can kind of look at what things the municipality can do. So I just went through sort of UBCM and some different things, and it just gives some context. It's just for sharing in the spirit of that meeting and some reflection. And I will also send you an email with the link, so it's easier if you wanted to take a peek at that.
That would be useful.
But anyway, I just think that, that it is something that has to be talked about, and getting some guidance. But I think we all need to be on the same page about what we actually want to talk about. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as is? Thank you. Yes, both the conversations that I had this week, last 8 days with Interior Health, were housing was a core issue. And they both those people, both Carl Meadows and Heidi Schilling, brought forward ideas and solutions and models from other places. So they're probably captured in your report here. Thank you. Committee of the Whole reports, government operations, Councillor Taylor.
So we have, so our next meeting is about to start. So we have a recommendation that council enter a committee of the whole meeting of the Government Operations Standing Committee.
Seconder.
So I'll make that motion.
Councillor Frizzle seconds, all in favor. And the chair over to Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. So the only item that we have on the agenda is a list of items for future discussion. Mr. Thomas, do you require council to make any decisions or kind of prioritize this, or is it just for us to receive for information?
No decision is required at this time. What I'm working towards is bringing forward to the next standing committee, or the last one. So we've done the infrastructure, we've now done the government operations, but the social development committee would also need to look at the list of future discussion items, from which then council can have a discussion about prioritization going forward for the remainder of the term. And that would also be tied into the May report about council or the district's performance and the strategic plan. I think Linda may have some additional items to mention about the list items here.
Just as well, we were looking at the list of items that the CAO has provided here, and just as an overhanging strategy is to develop a financial strategic plan or guideline or master plan, so we have an overarching idea how we progress into each of those categories, such as the reserve category, the investment category, debt, and fixed assets, TCA. So just as a recommendation to look at the overarching financial strategy before we go into the details.
Any questions on those? Or sorry, Councillor Taylor, you're running the show.
I was just about to ask, does anyone on council have any questions, either on the items or on the proposal that we developed?
If you can see Councillor Bafford.
Yeah, Councillor Chair, I guess for staff more, would you be giving council some idea on maybe a prioritization list of these? We're obviously not going to get them all done, and I know there's things in here like the annual auditor appointment we probably have to have done earlier than some of the other things. Consolidated bylaw fees, the cemetery committees talked about that as well. So I guess maybe in the future, just which ones have to be done and some kind of a time frame would be useful.
Absolutely, we will be providing a suggestion for council to consider in terms of prioritization, but I wanted council to be aware of the topic areas as a whole first. For example, the asset retirement obligation policy or bylaw, depending on how council choose to go, that has a legislative time limit on it. And so that's something, for example, that may need to start sooner than later. Procurement for parks is another example. The parks procurement is due to start this year or to be redone this year. The budget policy and program review, I think that is critical to set up the next council for success in the fall of 2022. Those are just some quick examples.
Thank you. Yeah, I would also add a request that if we get an assessment of the level of effort, because I think it's hard for us to kind of know how big some of these pieces of work might be, and which are the big ones and which are the maybe the easier ones that we can kind of tick off versus requiring a larger effort to deliver on them as well. Any other questions from council?
Annie? Go ahead. That's it.
Okay, we're good. Okay. And sorry, hard for me to read the room. In that case, we'll move forward. We have a recommendation that council rise from the committee of the whole. If somebody could make that recommendation.
Seconded.
Seconded.
Moved and
All
seconded.
those in favor?
All those in favor, we're all in favor. Thank you, Councillor
Okay,
Taylor.
perfect. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Throw the tiny little chair at me through the cyber webs. Moving on to community and economic development infrastructure. Councillor Bamford, several recommendations.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. First of all, our next meeting will be June the 7th. And there is a recommendation, and that recommendation is that council confirms the list of projects within the draft development cost charges appendix as presented, and the council direct an increase in the municipal assist factor to 60% for water service only in the updated development cost charges bylaw. And further, the council directs staff to schedule a review of the development cost charges bylaw in 3 years' time. Do I make that motion?
Seconder on that?
Nice. Can I speak to it?
Go ahead, Councillor Bamford.
So just real quickly for the people that are here, the development cost charges bylaw that we have is expiring. And what it basically does, it sets aside a fee that will be paid by developers to come into the community for roads, for water, for sewer, for parks. And we had to redo that bylaw. So what we've done is try to reduce some of the assist factors for one of those specific things, which was water, which was the largest projects that we have in the future that need to be done on possibly in a 10-year time frame. That's just a little bit of background on what it is for people that weren't here. So thank you.
Questions, Councillor Sim?
Questions to staff, I think, is with this, if a developer came in or a nonprofit came in and wanted to do something around a housing project, and I think we've done this with Evergreen Acres,
Yeah.
we still have the power to waive DCCs if that were to foster a project. Is that correct?
So once the bylaw is written, we have to follow the bylaw. Now, is there a process to waive DCC? I would have to look specifically at the language of the bylaw. Ultimately, if council wishes to go a different direction than the bylaw, we will bring that forward to council to.
Yeah, just in follow up to that, it dawned on me after we had finished is that are we structured to it? But I know that we had been able to waive it under the past one. So are we missing anything? That was just
For nonprofit, yeah.
for nonprofit.
For nonprofit.
For
we have.
nonprofit.
Yes.
So, or, for anything that, I mean, if we related, because that is a tool that we do have as a municipal government to assist. So I didn't know how restrictive this bylaw came to it. So I felt it was a question to ask.
And I wouldn't speak to anything other than nonprofit. I know we have for that. I'm not an expert. So other than that, for nonprofit, for what reason, I would have no idea. So.
It's a good question.
Yeah,
We'll staff take that for legal consultations instead of trying to figure it out at the table here for clarification. But yes, we have done that for actually twice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're in the middle of a vote.
And we were.
Okay. Any further questions?
So if we take that back to staff, do we want to vote on that just now to do it? Tell me, does that stop it or help
I
me
don't
out?
think we're passing it.
Okay, great.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're just in still discussions, but setting things. Okay, all those in favor? And Lucy's online, everybody passes. That passes. Councillor Sim, Parks and Rec and Social Development.
We are meeting May the 3rd.
Agenda. Standing committee reports, Joint Services Advisory Committee. We did have a meeting, discussed a few basic issues, including initial attack crews, transit, a few other things. But unless Mr. Thomas reminds me of anything specific, I don't think there was anything that came out of that as action attached to it. Trails Task Force, Councillor Taylor.
So our next meeting is May 10th. I wasn't able to join the meeting on the 12th of April. So I'm just going to ask Mr. Thomas if I can put him on spot and see if there was anything coming out of that that might be of note for council.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas, if there's anything like that.
So we had about, for the benefit of the public, we had an information session about the different trails project schedule for 2022. We had about 16 members of the community present. We discussed the location and the path of the trail and some of the ideas around why the trails are important. This substantive feedback that we received was for the district to reconsider the location, part of the location of the roundabout to Wells Grain Trail from being in front of the Wells Grain business to being at the back of the business. All the input documents have been referred back to the Trails Committee for consideration, which may inform future design changes to that particular trail. There was also some concern about snow clearing operations for the trail, and council may note that on the infrastructure committee of a whole, trail maintenance approach is also listed there for council to consider because we need to make some decisions coming up for the fall. So Wells Grain property realignment of the trail is the most substantive issues from my recollection.
Okay, thank you. Any
Appreciate that.
questions on that? Beyond the excellent work of the Trails Committee, which is all volunteers and does amazing work, I'd like to thank staff on the heavy lifting they've done on the BC Hydro and BC Tel file or TELUS files. BC TELUS has the BC Tel for centuries. And the amount of bureaucracy and other things that they have paddled upstream through to get us moving on the Hospital Hill Trail. Moving on to Community Economic Development Task Force, Councillor Frizzle.
Yeah, so the Economic Development Officer and I discussed the tentative date of May 16th. It's not written in stone, but it is the date we discussed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bamford, Cemetery Advisory. You already spoke to it a little
Yes,
bit.
thank you, Mayor Blackwell. I pretty well spoke to it, but our next meeting will be on May the 11th. So if anybody has any other questions, you can certainly catch me after. So,
Okay, moving on to committee representation reports. Councillor Sim, Tourism Wells Gray.
Yeah, they are really working hard at getting the information center off the ground. There's certainly some unknown questions like, what will tourism look like? Will there be any international people coming? Will there be places to stay? And yet they're still forging forward, which is great. In some of their, planning and their costings, there is some thought and consideration about the tournament coordinator and holding discussions with the District of Clearwater and what that might look like. It was agreed that for this year, because we've got some challenges that that funding, it makes sense to go into the information center, but certainly for the next council to just pay attention to how their summer went, and revamp it, because tourism in Clearwater, there's an awful lot of winter opportunities that need some assistance with. And having offered to take on some of the tournament coordination for Clearwater Youth Soccer, and I saw how much the tournament coordinator did, it's a great position. So how do we partner proactively with that? So yeah.
Thank you. I did share a letter with council this morning. There are some talking points to that to do with the Clearwater River Road. Ministry of Environment, BC Parks has done multiple versions of a study to look at restoring access to the upper Clearwater River. They looked at bridging the river at some point or a route through the management. They have come back now to the conclusion that the cheapest version of that will be to repair the existing washout. So they will be studying that over the next few months to come up with a plan for a future, hopefully a future repair of that. So that's an update on the Clearwater River. Answer further questions later if you want on that one. Moving on to 72, Councillor Bamford, Wells Gray Community Forest Commission.
thank you, Mayor Blackwell. And we have no meeting scheduled at this time, so it'll be announced.
Thank you. Item 18.1, staff reports, bus stop relocation. You have a report before you. This is moving the bus stop potentially away from the medical center to the Bylaw complex. Councillor Sim, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know that there wasn't a sanctioned bus stop at Bylaw, so that. Yeah, I know. So I was a bit confused by that, but okay, maybe I misunderstood the report. However, the big thing is the I just feel it's too far a distance to walk from Bylaw to the medical clinic. So I don't know if there's something to do in front of the library or if there's a different way. I did note in the report that there would be concessions made if somebody asks. So, you know, I know we've got some great drivers in town. I just want to make sure that that would always be done. Like, it was a little iffy for me. And I see Councillor Frizzle's got a comment, but that one concerns me.
Go ahead, Councillor Frizzle, you have a comment?
I had the same issue with the Bylaw because I thought there was a stop there because he stops there all the time. So obviously it's not an actual stop. So I don't see why it couldn't just do a switch over. Like, there's a bus stop at Bylaw, but you still make the stop at the medical center or library, whichever works. But I don't see why it would be, or just have someone on the bus say, I need to get picked up at or dropped off at. I don't know why that couldn't be an issue. I mean, it could be.
Further comments from anyone? Councillor Sims comment that it's quite a long ways away from the medical centers. My thought too. I think this is up to the parties working with staff, both Bylaw and YCS, maybe the TNRD with the stop at the library building instead. But reading the report, one of the requests is that there isn't good shelter space at the covered shelter space at the medical clinic. I think finding a way to resolve that. I think another factor that may not be mentioned in the report, but I have heard is that moving that bus through that very tight parking lot is an issue for the medical center as well. At this point, you know, setting up a bus stop at Bylaw is an obvious choice, but making that a firm thing would be great. But I also think in the future, finding a way to set up a proper bus stop somewhere near that area. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
So my question is whether there's like a time criticality to this decision, just that we're being asked to make a decision before we hear back from Bylaw, and I just wondered if there was an urgency there, or whether we should like wait to hear back from Bylaw before moving forward with any decision, because it could become a moot point if Bylaw aren't amenable.
Mr. Thomas?
There is no criticality.
So we could just table this discussion till the next meeting, until we hear back from Bylaw. I'd like the parties involved to have a little bit of time to see if we can wrangle a better solution. We're all in agreement on that. Okay, cool. Table. Item 18.2. Strategic plan and municipal projects. There's a staff report there. There is no recommendation. But if you have questions of Mr. Thomas on this, go right ahead. Just the general need that we have a lot of work to do and we need to strategize on some of this, put it priorities. Okay. Moving. General election. There is a recommendation on that. It's a hand count. So moved by Councillor Sims, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Do it like we've always done it. Any questions, further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, that passes. Thank you.
And we should clarify what a hand count is. It's not going to be really just a hand count that.
Basically, it's not having machines
Yeah,
count our ballots
for $225 million trillion.
Yeah,
Yes.
8,000. I think I worked out it'd be about $2.50 per possible vote for. Oh, Mr. Penny. Yeah.
I did receive.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you got 3 quotes, and even that basically says to me, we're a small enough community that a hand count, even if it means somebody's here till 11 o'clock at night, trust the people, not the machine. Anyways, so there is a recommendation. We voted on it. That comment came after, so we're good to go. Tourism grant, there's a staff report, item 18.4. Comments, questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Sim first.
So it's always a shame to see grants go by the wayside. And as much as I am keen to see what concepts might come up with the second level of the Sportsplex, and I think that that's going to be an ongoing purview. Is there any room with this particular grant to tie into the work that's being done on 37 East in terms of fencing or signage, or the fact that this is a long-term vision for the community? It will serve as an anchor park area for not only the river trail, but parking for down to Dutch Lake for boats, and also overflow parking for Dutch Lake. So can we leverage any funds under this grant? And is that a worthwhile project?
I think I'm going to leave it to staff to contemplate and come back with an answer on that at some future time, unless you want to give a crack at it right now. I think that's, I think there's always possibilities, but I don't know about timelines.
We will certainly have to take a closer look at that request and see what's viable and not viable. I will say it also depends on when council wishes to move forward with the 37 East project, which has been postponed until
Post
some of
Trans
the other
Mountain
stuff to come out the plate.
is an uncertain date, but yes, I mean, a great idea. Something to look at. And the timeline on what the timeline for use of the grant funding is. Okay.
I just also want to share, if there is room, and I understand timelines and all of that, but so much of the grant writing has already been done on it. So
Yes, but this, yeah, fair
right.
enough. And any other grant opportunities that come up.
It's got some
translated into.
staples. So
Yeah,
anyway, thank you very much, staff. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So that is for now. 2022 grant and aid applications. You have a staff report for you. One involves the Wells Gray Outdoors Club, which we should talk about first. As to the half marathon, which Juanita Allen has tried to get going for multiple years now. So there are multiple recommendations.
I am.
So that one is for $500. The first one up there is for $500 to be expended from the 2022 grant and aid budget to the Wells Gray Outdoors Club. What's the thoughts on that one? Councillor Sim first.
I am so pleased, and I love how forward thinking they are. They've been planning this for ages, and it's so well organized, and it got such good traction. I wish that they had asked for a bit more, so I would move option number 1, that council approve a grant and aid to the Wells Gray Outdoors Club in the amount of $500.
Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Discussion. Yeah, Juanita, all
Just
the things
great.
that have faded during COVID, Juanita has kept on going with this stream with the Wells Gray Outdoors Club. Good on them. Vote. All those in favor. And that passes. Now to the secondary issue is the YCS request for funding of $14,827. This is, I'm going to ask staff just for a little clarification on this one. Is that for what their taxes would cover, or is this just generic amount of money that they're asking for? Go right ahead.
In their application, they did state it would be for taxes. However, they don't own the building, so they are not responsible for the taxes as per BC assessment. However, they're in a triple net lease with a for-profit owner, so they are responsible.
Right, because they don't own the building, they're still paying the taxes, and they're not a nonprofit, so we
Yeah.
can't give them
We can't give them a permissive tax exemption.
exemption at this point. Yeah,
So generally, it's an operational cost.
right. Councillor Bamford.
Have we done an assist with them in the past?
Not on this issue. Multiple conversations. And I think Councillor Sim can take under other. This is a struggling proposition in our medical clinic at this particular point. I really do fear with all the conversations that I've had with healthcare, people with various job titles, that things are probably the worst risk case scenario that they've ever been at. I think the medical clinic's future survival is one of those things under the management of YCS, and I don't know who would pick it up after this. That said, I mean, this has to be a decision of council if they want to consider this. Councillor Sim?
I think what also needs to be shared is the fact that we are only at 2.5 positions. So any operational model, it's a very difficult scenario at the moment. I feel strongly about supporting this. I think that we were so fortunate that Yellowhead's stepped forward. Other communities, it's gone under the health authority, and those transitions have not gone very well. I think that as we gain momentum and as the Yellowhead goes through its first year of operations, I think we'll see a different story. We are seeing another doctor who's arriving in August. So that will also help alleviate. But in terms of the community asset and support, I really favor this.
Further discussions or comments?
I guess my only question is where is the best place to have that? If we do want to do this, where should the money come from? I know it says here.
Yeah.
there's
Contingency.
options, I guess.
Go ahead, Scott.
So the initial recommendation was for it to come from council.
That's fine, right? You could come out of- Yeah.
Two options, I'm sorry.
Last comment from me on this one until somebody else makes another comment. We constitutionally, as municipalities, are not supposed to have a role in health. That said, talk to is being drawn into this one. There is a feeling among a lot of the medical professional organizations, doctors, nurses, health associations, they're in tough shape, and they would like to see some sign of support, some token of support. This is a very large token, half a tax point, basically, from the communities that they're involved in. And normally, I would caveat this if we go forward with this. This is a one-year thing. They have to sort out whatever they need to do to continue from this point forward. But I would be in favor of this. This motion out of council contingency for that 14,000 and change for 1 year to help YCS manage the medical center through the crisis that's currently in. Hopefully, a new doctor and some relief on housing and anything else we can do in the next calendar year will get them to a better place. Councilor Brown.
I mean, I don't have a problem with, we can't lose the medical center. I mean, it's that simple, right? But I guess my other question is there anything that we can do in an advocacy role at a provincial level or whatever else, right? By lobbying the minister, even if it means going to Victoria direct or whatever else sort of a thing, to say, here's the issues that are happening. You know, you got to get it fixed in the province. You have to somehow. I mean, that's our other role, right? Is that political advocacy. So
Yeah, and that is happening behind the scenes on multiple levels. The other one, there's multiple ways that a lot of that conversation has to happen behind the scenes. But yes, as Councillor Sim has said, started with our housing thing. Housing is a huge part of the problem for recruitment here. But as far as funding the medical system, and even conversation I had with somebody from IHA this morning is breaking some of the silos that have broken during COVID. Some of the different ways of doing business need to be extended out even further if the healthcare system is going to become strong again, because the burnout level and the amount of damage that's been done under the COVID management, it's going to take years to recover from that. But a lot of the core problems existed well before COVID. Housing shortage, nurses retiring out, nurses burning out. All of that existed before COVID. COVID just made it more acute. Councillor Sim?
Just to also help you bring this home, is that this request isn't something that the ministry could help us with. The only way that they could do that is if we wanted to bring in Interior Health to have a clinic run situation. So this is a nonprofit who's taken it over from a private company. And as they transition, that's where the help is. Everything else that the mayor spoke to about the advocacy, about different initiatives. For this one, it's just the operational model that it's been built on a formula that relied on 5 doctors and we're at 2.5. So how do we help carry it over without putting a very valuable nonprofit in our community at financial risk?
Thank you. So, Councillor Taylor.
Can I ask also, is TNRD coming to the table with these conversations? Just acknowledging that the clinic supports more than just the people within inside the.
That is an excellent point. I don't think the TNRD has been approached at this point, but I'd be more than happy to bring it to Director Schaefer, because so many things are funded through Joint Services Committee. A 40% share of this would be awesome if we can figure that out in the future.
Yeah, and just generally, I think having them at the table for the conversations around the future of our clinic and options for healthcare and like how can TNRD be a partner on this, recognizing it's their community too.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that Director Schaefer likes us to keep her in the loop on. She is kept quite well in the loop on by her daughter who works at the hospital as well. But yes, thanks for bringing that one up, and we will send those. We'll forward this out to Director Schaefer and let her know what's going on. Okay, so what do we want to do with this? Do we want to do anything with this?
Oh.
Councillor Taylor.
I'll make the recommendation that we support the grant and aid, but through the contingency. So it would be more of a donation through council contingency as opposed to grant and aid.
Thank you.
I don't have the options in front of me. Sorry, I should.
That's fine. Seconded by Councillor Sim. I think we get the gist of it. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. That passes. Thank you for that. Excellent conversation. Where the heck am I?
19-1.
Thank you. That's where I thought I should be, but it didn't make any sense. Emergency plan bylaw number 261. Steve, catch up, page 45. So there is a recommendation that the District of Clearwater Emergency Program bylaw number 261, 2022 be adopted. So moved by Councillor Bamford, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. District of Clearwater bylaw number 261, 2022, a bylaw to establish emergency program with the District of Clearwater. Whereas the District of Clearwater Council is required to prepare a local emergency plan respecting preparation for, response to, and recovery from emergencies and disasters. And whereas the District of Clearwater wishes to provide a comprehensive management program to prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies and disasters. Now, therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the Emergency Plan Program Bylaw number 261, 2022. All those in favor? And that is adopted. Thank you. And then moving on to Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 262. Do we have any presentation from this? We do not. Okay, so I think most of you have read this. This is basically returning zoning. There's multiple recommendations here. What the actual land use is, away from commercial onto country residential 1. Are there any questions of staff maybe on this? Okay. Go ahead if you'd like clarification, Councilor.
I think that what I understood was that this is really just a housekeeping to really just get it back into alignment. So it.
Yeah, this is usually the home of goats and donkeys.
Yeah.
Non-commercial storefront, even though it's next to the new home building center, no longer Rona, but that's what it is. Yeah, and this is an attempt by the landowner to clear up, basically, like you say. If there's no further questions, give you a second. Pretty basic stuff. Go ahead, Councilor Bamford.
The only other thing is we do have a comment on the last page from our planning staff kind of a thing, which is basically sort of in my mind, a presentation more or less from them. They don't have any concerns with it really, so.
So There are 4 recommendations. No, there's 4 recommendations. Anyways, recommendation 1. What's the wish of council?
I'll move the first recommendation.
Okay, seconder by Council McKenzie. All those in favor? Introduced and read for first time by title only. I haven't done one of these in a long time. Hold on a second, Lucy. Oh, I'm just, you all look like you are trying to figure out where we're at. Yeah, that's absolutely no problem. I'm trying to figure out if I'm supposed to read something. Yeah, how about we do that for now, and then we'll come back to it. What? Oh, that's not it. We'll table that for now, and we'll
There's
come
a
back to it.
bylaw and an,
So we'll move on to District of Clearwater bylaw number 264, 5-year financial plan. Thanks to staff for the excellent work on that. There are 3 recommendations there. The first recommendation is that District of Clearwater bylaw number 264, 2022, 2022, 2026, 5-year financial plan be introduced and read for the first time. What is the wish of council? Councillor Sim.
And I think the recommendations are great. Certainly the work that went into it. I know that one of our last meetings that we had talked about, and I think Councillor Taylor, this is your portfolio, and you had said that our reserves have enough. Should we need to, look at any emergency management assistance, that the reserves were there? Are we good? Still good to go on that?
We have reserves. However, they're assigned to certain specific items. So if it was an emergency, we would rely on our uncontributed or on our surplus.
We do have,
We've got the ability to
we have
pay
the
for the
ability to say
leak in the roof.
generators or something else that needs to come up in a hurry. We have some ability.
Okay.
We have council contingency, and then I can't remember where we will put. I think unrestricted reserves is where we were putting unrestricted surplus. Is that where we were putting the incremental revenue from the 2.5% increase?
Correct.
So that's where I feel we have some buffer, both in our contingency and in the unrestricted surplus. I mean, it's still going to be all dependent on how pricing comes in and things like that. My point is, I think the point I was trying to make is that at some point we have to draw the line, and we don't know what's coming tomorrow, and we don't know how much those things are going to cost when they come tomorrow. But like, we will have to kind of potentially be more creative, but there should be room within any budget for us to adjust things as priorities shift. And so I think that's where we hopefully will have the room to do that as priorities shift. At some point we have to draw a line, and we have to put the bylaw in, and things change, and we have to adjust and accommodate that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that the bottom line is that there's enough in the piggy bank if we had to move forward. And I think that's what we wanted to do. I think this budget was really, really good because we had to look at a lot of different factors within it. And the fact that we are looking ahead to move some of the extra funds into the contingency or the surplus. And I think that the budget also speaks to the fact that there's some need for next council to look at how to diversify revenues.
Okay, so where were we? I think we had that moved and seconded. And
No, we didn't.
we did not. Okay.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Taylor, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. No further discussion. All those in favor? I think I have to read it now.
Yeah.
Usually that's the discussion, but anyways. District of Clearwater 2022 5-year financial plan bylaw number 264 2022, a bylaw to adopt the 2022 to 2026 5-year financial plan, whereas section 165 of the community charter requires the council shall adopt a 5-year financial plan. Now therefore the council of the district of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater bylaw number 264 2022 to 2026 5-year financial plan. All those in favor? Okay, and then the next motion, Councillor Bamford, would you like to read them both together? Thank you, seconder. Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. District of Clearwater 2022 5-year financial plan bylaw number 264, a bylaw to adopt the 2022-2026 5-year financial plan. Whereas section 165 of the community charter requires the council shall adopt 5-year financial plan. Now therefore the council of the district of Clearwater in open meeting assembled and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the district of Clearwater bylaw number 264 2022 to 2026 5-year financial plan. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay.
Have a step closer.
We can move on to correspondence. There's some interesting stuff in there. I didn't actually see the one on, oh, there it is. Building services in there for inspection sheets. 28.1. If you see anything you want to talk to me about, CN Rail vegetation program notice. Councillor Herring, I'm sure would have something to say on that one. Extended hour childcare for shift workers, Fort St. John. Yep, go ahead.
You know what I find really interesting about that one is that the partnership between Northern Health. That's a really interesting point, and one maybe we can't act on, but it's certainly worth highlighting for future conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Nature Canada Oceans Day 2022. And luxury tax on recreation boats. So wherever I park my Russian yacht, I'd be more than happy to pay a tax on it, but since I don't, I think we'll just take if we mind, we'll take a 5-minute recess, maybe. And you need to get water or go to the bathroom. Please do that, and we're just waiting for some paperwork on.
Missing on that.
What? Oh, yeah, I could do Thomas for the public, yeah. Just give me 1 second and we'll wait for Mr. Thomas to get back. For the public, this will probably have to answer after.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll give people a minute or two.
So. Neither one of them's here. Oh, no, this one's. Yeah. No. CP amendment? No? Yes.
I had 263, but it's only. That's okay. Word link. Did you ever resolve your, Shelley, did you ever resolve? Yeah, sorry, the HTML. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I opened both for some reason. Use I can expand out the PDF and then look at them. Yeah. A hammer, or, throwing your laptop in the toilet. Yeah, our T and RD laptops are so small that I can't see either ones.
Lock up tonight. Email me said that that's for June. Anything. So he's looking for with or is it sharing with us? Yeah, Cam. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. We're coming up out of technical difficulties here. So, yeah, you have that in your email, apparently. So
Yes, I have it. Thank you.
thank you. Follow along at home. Moving on back to item 19.4. Oh, that's not the one. Item 19.2. Recommendation, the official community plan amendment bylaw number 262, 2022 be introduced and read for a first time by title only. Councillor Frizzle, are you moving that?
I'm moving that.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Bamford. Any questions of staff? Okay. District of Clearwater bylaw number 262, 2022, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater official community plan adoption bylaw. All those in favor? That passes. Thank you. And then moving on to 19.2, the second recommendation that the official community plan amendment bylaw number 262 be read a second time and be taken to public hearing in conjunction with regular council meeting. Mover and a seconder, if somebody wishes. Moved by Councillor Frizzle. I see Councillor Taylor scratching online, so we'll take that as a second. District of Clearwater bylaw number 262, 2022, a bylaw to amend District of Clearwater official community plan adoption bylaw. Whereas District of Clearwater Council has adopted the Clearwater official community plan adoption bylaw number 93, 2022, and whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater deems it desirable to adopt an amendment to the Clearwater official community plan bylaw number 93 of 2022, and whereas the amendment is consistent with the region's regional growth strategy and waste management plan, say that twice, and the amendment does not affect the district's financial plan. Now, therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater in an open meeting assembled enacts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater official community plan adoption bylaw number 93, amendment bylaw number 262, 2022. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 263. So there are two recommendations on 263. The first recommendation is that zoning amendment bylaw number 263, 2022 be introduced and read for a first time by title only. What is the wish? Thank you, Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Taylor online, who's not scratching this time. Any questions of staff on this? No. District of Clearwater bylaw number 263, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. All those in favor? And then on to the second recommendation under 19.3, that the zoning amendment bylaw number 260 be read in a second time and be taken to a public hearing in conjunction with a regular council meeting. What's the wish? Councillor McKenzie moves that, seconded by Councillor Bamford. District of Clearwater bylaw number 263, 2022, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133, whereas an application number RZ 22-01 for amendment to the zoning bylaw number 133 has been made, and whereas the desirable changes in uses of land have been considered, and whereas the zoning amendment conforms to the District of Clearwater official community plan, now therefore Council of the District of Clearwater an open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as a District of Clearwater bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw number 263, 2022. All those in favor? Passes. Now moving back to the end of the agenda, comments from the public time. Questions from the back of the room. Mr. Rotstetter, fire away. there's a long list. I'll start with the easy ones. Conversation that I had this morning. Scheduling was taken to Kamloops, to a computerized automated system away from local schedulers. That one issue alone, which is being reversed to some degree, took away the ability of staff to really trade shifts or for local managers to call in favors to say, hey, how about next Friday, you have a 3-day weekend, but I need you tonight kind of thing. So that became a major problem for scheduling of staff, especially nurses. The other big factor is housing prices. They've actually had a fair number of people interested in filling positions in Clearwater. They do the interview, they start looking at housing here. Nobody can afford to come into this market. If there's nothing available or limited stuff available. And a lot of these people, it's not about purchasing so much, but it's also about renting because people don't want to make the long-term commitment. Burnout, I'll do 2 more and then you can ask your follow-ups. Burnout. A lot of people are retiring, even hospital managers. My sister works in Williams Lake. It's not just us, it's all across interior health. People are dropping like flies in this industry. And I noticed today that the province announced they're going to fast track foreign nurses to be able to qualify that are already living in BC. So, and nursing schools just haven't been putting out enough people to replace the baby boomer retirement bus. You know, bubble is coming through. Go ahead for the poll. Yep. Yes. Yep. That was discussed this morning with IHA, and they're interested in that. District not being involved in it, I can't speak to your specific case. That would be
Okay, but
that's stuff that's handled in camera, so I can't talk about that one specifically. But the concept of what you're talking about has been discussed at multiple levels before.
right, but we
yeah.
were told at that time that it was looked after. Housing was not an issue. It was looked
It-
after.
And at that time for the need at that particular time was for houses for sale to be bought. They actually had their nursing covered at that particular time. At that particular 3-month period when we were talking about, that answer that you got was correct. This has been an evolving situation. They actually had 3 rental apartments and only 2 of them filled when we had that conversation, or when staff and you had that conversation. So it's a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster of changes. The vaccine mandate stuff changed it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess another question I have is there another way to address town council and mayor for answers? And, you know, if we have questions for stuff, we've tried emails. We have a lot of questions that aren't really being answered, or no follow-up email with stuff that we've sent in as far as asking questions. I guess the medical clinic there with their tax situation, why don't we use some of the COVID money for that?
COVID money is actually tied to certain things. There's things that we can't spend it on. So I don't know if that's something that we could do or not, but I'll let Mr. Thomas talk to that. And this is why quite often you don't get direct responses through me. 1, legal says it's not a good idea. 2, the experts are actually at that desk there. So Mr. Thomas, if you'd like to try to.
So the COVID is a grant. The COVID funding is a grant, and with every grant program, the funding agency provides a list of requirements I could actually use the funds for. Supporting YCS as a priority for the community, unfortunately, does not fall within that scope that we are authorized to spend that money on.
Is there any place where we can see what those requirements are, that COVID money?
I would have to look into that and see if we could actually release the service agreement, but it's something I would have to look into.
Is it a grant does it have to be paid back? Or is it-
No.
Grants are money that you don't have to pay back. It would be a loan.
Just have to be justified?
No, not just justified. We also have to report on every penny that we spend on and what we spend it on. And if it falls outside of the authorized area, then we will have to reimburse the province or the funder for that money.
Right.
So
Okay, so with the emergency room being closed, would a helicopter pad be a good idea to go to?
Oh, for the love of God, yes. Yeah, so right now, helicopter lifts are being handled by Blackpool out of the area. Director Schaefer and I had this conversation. We were meeting about the roundabout, or not the roundabout, the Highway 5 Wells Gray intersection. We were there for the day. We had the discussion about helicopter landing pad. It's been brought up that actually the old hospital location by some of the pilots has been a location that they were okay with landing at. Other ones weren't. With a lot of things with interior health, it's a long battle to get them to come to a conclusion on something. With these hospital emerged closures, that they're beginning to realize that they have something that they have. So, Councillor Sim, would you like to add something to that?
Just that Councillor Jenstead, way back when, had brought this forward, and you'll remember the numbers, but I think we got a quote for like 75,000, and then there was some.
2.3 million.
Yeah, and it escalated beyond, and it was beyond council's control, but there was sort of that visionary oversight there. I don't want to talk about it. I just, if you ever want to, lose any hair or not sleep at night or anything, please, October, just come forward. They're really hard conversations, and they were instigated, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So when does it come up?
It was
in our hands instead of interior health? You know what I mean? When is it our decision that we put in a pad or not? We're paying for a hospital that we can't use taxes. When does it become our decision as taxpayers to say, we don't have here to look at their emergencies?
The issue on the helipad is one thing. Right now, air ambulances are leaving out of. This is the thing with ambulance transfers to air ambulance. Unless it's on the exact same property, it's going to be a transfer by an ambulance from the hospital to the helicopter with a doctor, usually if it's an emergency and a full paramedic. So driving them, the ideal place would actually be for them to get permission to use the established helicopter pad that Yellowhead helicopters had. That'd be the easiest, simple one. Unfortunately, there's been some bad blood there, and that's not an option. Currently, the flat old paved area next to Blackpool Fire Hall is where they are doing that transfer. It's still relatively reasonable with ambulance and lights and sirens. It's less than 5 minutes. But yes, the long-term vision is to have something near the hospital, preferably on the hospital site. They got to do some tree management there. There's a few issues there, but it hasn't been a priority for them because they've been dealing with all these other things. I think it has to become a bit more of a priority. I was assured that the ER would not close again about a month and a half ago, and we've had multiple closures since. This is all about staffing. It has very little to do with add-ons. Councilor Bamford?
just another point was, in the past, when it came up, the cost was really quite prohibitive by looking at it for a helipad. The other thing, when you're dealing with a fire situation, and you have and I have seen helicopters land in an area the size of this room for emergency, for that, it's the flight path in and out, because it would be a designated helipad paved, So it was quite cumbersome and quite limited in relationship to a flight path in and a flight path out, given winds, given trees, given everything else, right? When you get into the aerodynamics or the aviation portion of it and the restrictions around that, that's a whole other game that was really difficult to find your way through.
So as to your question, and Annabelle, I'll let you go next, but as to your question, when do we take control of that? I mean, the District of Clearwater is currently operating on a budget of $2.7 million, everything all in. Minimum, I think you're talking realistically about a project that's going to be $400,000 to $500,000, not for us to do, but for what the minimum level of government approval for accepting such a helipad would be. They're remembering that their last actual cost, if they were to do it, was 2 point something. I have to look back into it. don't know where we would do that, considering the very long list of priorities to do with infrastructure projects that we need to do as critical things for our community, like looping water into Sunshine Valley, like the Sunshine Valley fire protection, and looping reservoir. Like we have $40 million worth of outstanding road infrastructure that we need to deal with in the next 20 to 30 years. We also have a fire hall to build basically in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to probably, the last one I just read about started at 4.7 million and it went to initial bids at 12 million and they scaled it back to 8 point something million dollars. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's in our wheelhouse that we need to do as a community that is going to consume everything that we have as resources for this community that the taxpayers can afford without getting into things that are actually the responsibility of province of British Columbia. And that's where the issue lies. Once you start, like the road between Boros, and I know this is another sore spot, and the Eco Depot, once you start taking on other people's responsibilities, you own them. And once we get into the position of taking on things like a helipad, we own it. We own the responsibility for the rest of time, basically. They won't take it over. And it's not a bad thing if you want your taxes to be 20% more than a comparable community for the same population per head. I mean, and that's just a starting point. One tax point in Clearwater is less than 30,000. To come up with enough tax points, even on a finance project for something like a helipad, that would be years worth of 5 or 10% tax points. And then the liability of it. And it's not even our responsibility. The best solution is for us to hit harder. And fortunately, IHA is beginning to understand that they have a major problem, that they can't just toe the old line of we're IHA, we don't listen to anybody else, we do what we think is right. They are now understanding with this crisis and everything that's gone on in the last 3 years, and then the path forward, looking at their staffing predictions, that they are not going to get out of this anytime soon, that they have to change the way that they operate, and they need to start investing in things like nurse housing, like helipads. Yeah, we've had multiple conversations on the kind of things that they need to do in their changes and how they operate, which never would have happened until 5 years ago, 3 years ago. You wouldn't be having that conversation. They have been changing how they think about things at a rate that I've never seen a government agency. Housing is always going to be an issue with the number of new people cashing out of the coast and moving here. We could use another 70. I've talked to 3 developers in the last 3 months, people that have approached various channels. Economic development and housing here are probably our most active files after the medical thing. And to the point where IHA representatives are now talking to me about IHA investments in housing, which is completely insane. Annabelle. I'll repeat Annabelle's question. Yep. Yeah. Brookfield Mall is private property, so you have to have that as thing. But we've already used the helicopter pilots. As far as your question, I'm going to repeat for Lucy here, who's online wondering. The helicopters like using the Blackpool Fire Hall. They have trained emergency personnel on call there. They can call out the volunteers there, set up, cordon off the area. It's not well used anyways. There's not going to be any sort of random thing going on there. In the past, our fire department has actually used the parking lot at the high school with the skateboard or the sportsplex parking lot, but you don't know when you make that call out to use that if there's going to be kids playing basketball there, how quickly the ambulance is coming in. And there's so many variables about ways people can access that. You've got the motel next door. So the end result is what Ron has suggested, is that we need a proper hospital landing, helicopter landing pad. It's just a matter of who pays for it, who builds it. And it should be, and it is the legal responsibility or the responsibility of IHA to do that. But we can encourage that, we can lobby for that.
Ashwaubenon, we've even looked at fence compounds like the Forest Service, who flies all the time, but they use the yellowhead pad themselves, right? But we've looked at other options like that. I mean, people that are familiar with helicopters that have that fence capability. Then there's a whole dealing with access to the compound outside hours and which is a whole different, the challenges sort of stack up once you start opening the door.
Yeah, dust and whatever else, and what equipment happens to be out in the yard. If nothing further, we do have an in camera. Oh, sorry, Stephanie. You have questions about the agenda? Yeah.
Like, is this finished now? Or like?
No, this goes out to public consultation. So the motion or the part that says we review this in 3 years, what we found when our staff were looking around at development cost charges around the province, that many of them were out of date. So good modern sort of benchmarks as to what it should responsibly cost weren't available there. The other factor is our project list. Our to-do list of municipal projects, we seem to do them a lot faster than are on the DCC list. So it's always good to review that to make sure that everything on there is still valid and that we are paying for the projects that are covered by the DCC. We quite often on a lot of things have got fairly large grants over the last few years that have taken some of those projects off the list, or maybe something that's come up like, say, oh, I don't know, the need for a generator during a blackout that might happen with the run water system that might not need to go, might need now to go on the list because we didn't realize how much of a priority it was before. So it's more about keeping the DCC list and that bylaw up to date and not giving it a definite end time for review versus a lot of communities and even ours, which went on for, I don't know, was it 12 years, 11 years before we got to do something like that. So it's just good housekeeping. It's good management.
And then just a quick question about the YCS and the medical clinic. Are they, because they took it over by a private company, or they took it over a private company's clinic is what I understood that to be.
The doctors own it for,
Okay,
as
so
a company
do they
owned it.
not get funding from the province then for? Is it? Because I've heard it's a different model here than it is elsewhere.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different model. Any thoughts, Councillor Sim, on understanding how it all works? Yeah, I can't really answer that. You'd have to talk to them.
Yeah, and I think that the key thing is that they are a health center. And so that gives different opportunities than it being private or if it were under the health authority. But like anything being done for the first year, it takes a while. And again, a lot of the funding model is based on how many physicians you have in the building and that revenue stream. So this is how we support that first year in becoming successful.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. If you have any follow-up, send me in or send it to John. We need to move into in camera. So there is a recommendation the meeting we close the public pursuant to sections 91 G and K of the community charter to discuss matters relating to litigation, potential litigation affecting the municipality, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are in the preliminary stages and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Can I get a mover and a seconder on that one, please? Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Bamford. It is now 4:04. See you back at 4:10. Thank you.